Hey everybody, welcome to Season 3 of Song Revolution. Get ready to ramp up your songwriting. Hey everybody, John here, back with Song Revolution, Season 3. It's so exciting to be so far into this thing, have over 200 episodes, and just such a back catalog of information, inspiration, and hopefully just some great things that will help you ramp up your songwriting. All this year, we're doing the NCS 2025 Songwriting Challenge, and I wrote a 31-page downloadable PDF that will guide you through each month, adding skills and knowledge to your songwriting. Think about where you could be next year if you took this seriously. Follow the podcast, our free monthly training. Every first Monday, we do a free 1-hour training that goes along with that month's theme. And we're just trying to pour it out for you guys. So check it out. Jump into the Songwriting Challenge, and let's take this thing to the next level for God's glory. Well, I'm very excited today because I have two wonderful human beings in the studio with me today. One that I go back with a couple of decades, Jared Anderson, who is an incredible songwriter, someone that I truly respect. Lord, I'm Amazed, Rescue. What's the other big one that I'm blanking on? We'll bring it up in a minute, but it's a good one. The Bridge was great.
The Great I Am.
Oh, Great I Am. Thank you. All right, so Great I Am. We're going to leave it. We're not going to edit that out. That was too good. We're going to leave that on. I remembered it was like something good. But anyway, Jared Anderson is here along with Kelly Wilkerson, who is the daughter-in-law of the late, great David Wilkerson, who started Teen Challenge and World Challenge many, many years ago, an iconic ministry that reaches around the world, sharing the love of Jesus Christ. So, welcome, Jared and Kelly.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
We're going to leave that intro.
Yeah.
We're just going to leave it because it was too classic, right?
That's fun.
Right.
It's
Great I am.
So human. Right? We said we're human beings.
So good. So good. Well, we'll come back to you in just a moment because I want to honor Kelly and the wonderful legacy of World Challenge and Teen Challenge. And you're married to Gary, who is the son of David. And David started Teen Challenge and then World Challenge,
Yes, that's
maybe.
right. Yes,
And so,
he did.
I was telling you before we started recording that I used to do music back in the day, 187 years ago, for Teen Challenge when I was a kid. And
No way
I
you're
have
that old. Yeah.
a little bit of history there. But why don't you tell us a little bit? Now, we're going to get into what you're doing in worship
Sure.
with Jared and 1121 Worship. But why don't you take a few minutes and for those who might not know much about World Challenge, help us, give us the vision of what's going on.
Yeah, sure. So World Challenge exists to practice pure religion. So we want to have that where we care for orphans, we care for widows, we care for the oppressed, and plant the church where it doesn't exist, maybe because of a government regime or persecution, or they're just far to reach, to get there. And so we support systems, we'll like if we're in Egypt, and so there's an unreached people group in Northern Africa, we'll reach out to those in Cairo or someplace and say, hey, can you help us, get to this tribe or this community? Because they know the language, they know the customs.
Right.
It's a lot easier for a Westerner to try to go there and build relationship for 40 years.
But you start with more humanitarian effort and relief.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So just supporting orphans, caring for them. I mean, it's not just a package of food or a pair of shoes. It's the long term. It's housing, it's education, it's support through trauma. So really try to promote that in the church, like this is pure religion. And so we need to care for orphans. We need to care for widows. We need to
It's awesome.
plant the church where it doesn't exist.
So it's a global ministry.
Yes.
After all these years.
Yes.
And how many people do you have working with the organization worldwide?
So, worldwide. Well, because we have partners all over the world. They might not necessarily be on staff at WC, but we do partner with them. In our office in Colorado Springs, we have 35 staff. And part of that's missions, it's media, it's admin. So, but 93% of any gift goes directly to ministry.
Awesome. That's so cool. And it started many years ago. 1963, I think, was when The Cross and Switchblade came out.
Right.
The story of David winning Nikki Cruz to Christ out of a New York street gang.
Right.
A lot of people might not know that story.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'd love to share that story. It was February of 1958 where my father-in-law was just fed up with the church, fed up with how his life was going, his ministry, and God was really dealing with him about his time and spending time alone with the Lord. And so he took his television set and set it out on the street curb and said, God, I'm going to start spending time with you, and not wasting it. And the Lord showed him a picture in a Life magazine, actually, of a sketch of, I think it was 5 defendants in a murder trial in New York City. And he had such compassion for them that he left his little church in Pennsylvania and went to the city to confront that situation. And because he was thrown out of the courtroom, because he didn't know how to get there or what to do, he just stormed the courtroom. I want to talk to these young men, and it was a high-profile case, and they threw him out, and then he landed in the papers. And that's where the gang members saw that there was some connection. Like, this man was fighting for gang members. Who is this guy? He ended up living in his car, for a time being and just making connections. God was leading him. He ended up in a little Spanish church up in Spanish Harlem. And they had been praying, for their neighborhoods. And so he started joining them in prayer. July of that year of 58, when Gary was born, he wasn't at home when my mother-in-law, Gwen, gave birth, but he was at St. Nicholas Arena. And he invited 12 different rival gangs to St. Nicholas Arena for an evangelistic
because that's
outreach.
what you do. You invite rival gangs into the same place.
Yeah. So, and Nikki is still living. He lives in Colorado Springs. He will travel from time to time with Gary and myself. And we just have this amazing relationship with this man that he threatened to kill my father-in-law. He was going to cut him up.
I remember the movie. Yeah.
Right. So, and my father-in-law said, "Hey, you do that. You can cut me into 1,000 pieces and scatter it here on the street, but every piece will cry out, 'Jesus loves you, Nikki.'"
Jeez.
And that just sat with Nikki for about 2 weeks, and he came back and he gave his heart to Christ, and he's been around the world evangelizing and has led millions to Christ.
That was 67 years ago.
Yes.
1958. I was born in 1958. Okay, full disclosure, I'm 67. That is insane, isn't it? That ministry was born, and nearly 70 years later, here you guys are.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that became the book, The Cross and the Switchblade, and then the notoriety and the invitations started for my father-in-law to go and do evangelistic rallies, speak at churches, that whole thing. And so he didn't like flying. And so he felt like he needed some place that was a little bit more centrally located. He ended up in East Texas and started traveling. So that's where I was raised, in East Texas. And then that's where Gary and I met. A mutual friend introduced us and became part of the Wilkerson family. So, and then World Challenge was birthed out of needing that launching pad and the covering for the conferences and the ministry that takes place from there.
Wow.
So
well, I'm just blown away. I mean, to think about, I know there are ministries that have been around a long time, but, they can come and go, a little bit depending on the founder's life and circumstances. But that is so incredible. And so Gary and you have picked up the mantle. When did David pass?
He passed in 2011, April of 2011. And in, I think it was 1972, he invited Dallas home to join the World Challenge Ministry. And so Dallas was a single artist for a little while, and then they created Dallas Home and Praise, and at which time then Rise Again was written, and that hit the airwaves.
I want to hold that for our second half today when we talk about the music of 1121 Worship and what you're doing. But
thank you.
That is iconic. When I read that in the press release and thought, dang, that was 47 years ago.
Yes.
Where does the time go, you guys?
Right.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
But iconic song. You guys have reimagined it for 1121 Worship. And so we'll hold that.
That's
we'll save that.
We'll save it.
I'm going to give us something for the next half.
Sure.
But so were you and Gary already involved in World Challenge when David passed, or did you just kind of have to jump into it?
No. Gary started traveling with his father worldwide in 2003. They were consistently doing pastors' conferences. So my father-in-law moved back to New York City in, I guess it was 87. And we helped him there to plant Times Square Church.
Right.
And so we were there for 2 years on staff at Times Square Church. And then because we're at heart pastors and worship leaders, so we actually moved to England to plant a church there, which didn't turn out. That's a different story, but
another podcast.
Right. So
the Piccadilly Square church failure. What happened? The real inside story about Piccadilly Square.
Yep.
Featuring Kelly Wilkerson.
Thank you, John. That's a great setup. I like that. So he was back in New York. So my father-in-law was back in New York and pastoring a church after all of these years of being on the road and just doing conferences. And so then his heart was burdened for, we've got to minister to pastors. This is such a hard job.
Right? You ever do it, you either quit or you want to go minister to everybody else.
Right, yeah.
It's trying to do it,
So he and Gary started traveling together in 2003. And then Gary became president of World Challenge in 2008.
Okay.
And then my father-in-law passed away in 2011.
Okay.
So.
Wow. So you have a worship leading history.
Yes.
And that's awesome.
Yeah,
and Times Square Church is just so famous. And I've had people say, well, I went to Times Square Church. And it's like, cool. Yeah, David Wilkerson. And that'd be about all I knew about it.
Yeah,
but
right.
Is it still going strong?
It is. Yes.
Yes.
It's in the heart of Manhattan.
Yeah.
Broadway and 51st. And God just divinely gave them the Mark Hellinger Theater. And because my father-in-law, he was praying through and over the city. It's like, God, I know you have a place for us. And when he saw the Mark Hellinger, he was like, this is it. And they were just opening a brand new, supposed to be hot Broadway show. And so, my father-in-law said, let's start to pray, because we were renting a theater on 41st. And so people began to pray. The show closed within 6 weeks. The management was desperate to sell because they had lost so much. And so he went in and made him an offer, and
Wow.
there it is.
That sounds a little more like voodoo than prayer to me, but
just answered prayer.
kind of
I
curse.
tell
That's
you
an
what.
Old Testament curse or something.
So
That's like
when God moves,
This tree shall fail.
That's
this
right.
tree, I curse you,
Curse the
theater. You theater shall die.
That's right.
Oh wow, well, it's quite a story.
Yeah.
Wow.
So now they actually have the David Wilkerson law, so you cannot sell a theater in New York to become a church.
Are you kidding me?
No, they were just like, wow.
For real?
Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah,
it's
they
like a
have.
challenge to get a law named after
know,
you.
right.
Oh, wow. Wow. Well, that is
So-
an amazing story. And
Right.
hope to visit up there someday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Maybe when
powerful.
y'all are
That's
Amazing.
debuting some 1121
Some
worship
songs.
That's right.
conference
John
or
will
something.
let you
come
know. You'll be our guest.
Thank
Very
you.
cool.
Yeah.
Exciting. Well, let's
Yeah,
transition over to
Absolutely.
Great I Am,
I know.
Jared Anderson.
Yay.
Buddy, how could I forget that title?
That's so
I've
funny.
sung that song
Oh.
so many times, but man, it is good to see you
awesome.
again.
See you,
You
man.
and I first met back in the early to
right.
mid 90s. I was the guy over all the writers and a lot of the projects at Integrity Music when it was still done in Mobile, Alabama,
Okay,
which
yeah.
it's not the end of the earth, but you can
That's
see it from
iconic,
there. It's
yeah.
like way down there. And they've been here in Nashville for a long time. But you and I became acquainted, and you were you're part of the Desperation band
right.
at
New
New
Life
Life
Church.
in Colorado Springs.
Yeah,
And
good
so love your work.
Oh, thanks.
Just love you as a human. And I'm just excited that you've stepped into a new season
Yeah.
here with Kelly. And why don't you catch us up? Maybe give us the quick tour of your life since New Life. You have
Sure.
6 children.
Yeah.
So,
What am I doing?
wow. They're all in their 40s and still living at home. But
Soccer runs, right?
so- no,
I'm still living with my parents.
Yeah,
so-
right. As their
Taxiing
parents
children
before
around. I know
them.
exactly what you're doing.
But yeah, well, catch us
Oh,
up
yeah.
since New Life and kind of
Sure.
and then step us into a little bit of 1121 worship and
Yeah.
save a lot of that though, because we're going to take a break
Okay.
and come back. But what's been going on?
Man, it feels a little blurry, but I mean, yeah, was, I guess, with New Life and with Desperation and I guess the decade of the 2010s, I've just been like touring and writing and raising kids. So now my oldest is 20, my youngest turns 13 at the end of the month, and so it feels like, I don't know, a different season. The first half is so physical, and the second half, the front 9 is physical, and
Yeah.
the back 9 is emotional.
Yeah,
So-
that's well said.
Yeah.
So, yeah, lots of teenagers and people trying to drive and wrecking vehicles. Just
Got to do it.
such a blessing.
Got to do it.
And yeah, one thing we've been doing for the last 10 years is we've done, kind of backed into it, a Christmas show that highlights people with Down syndrome.
Wow.
So
It's beautiful.
it has we started this little thing as a fundraiser for a school in South Africa, like a missions effort, basically. And it's turned into a whole community of families that have kids with Down syndrome that all participate. We have 60 families that participate in putting on this show, and we rehearse like all fall. And then this thing, it's become kind of like a community fixture in the Christmas season that we sell out multiple shows. And
This is at your church in Colorado Springs?
no, we do it at a theater,
At a theater.
at the college there. And it's not really, I want to say it's like, it's not really Christian, but it's like the holiest thing
Yeah.
that we do.
Sweet.
You know? And so that's like a good chunk of our of our bandwidth or effort, and then just continuing. I've served at a church for a couple of years, small church
Well,
that needed some
I want to go
help.
back. I want to go back to the program for a minute.
Okay.
Now, what prompted this? Do you guys have a Down syndrome
No,
child?
we
or-
don't. We've been involved with the special needs community. We had a gal with Down syndrome at our wedding, and we've just always had this connection. But I went on a trip to South Africa and visited a school that's just for kids with Down syndrome, and my friend had started a little nonprofit to try and help them.
Gotcha.
Because he does have a child with Down syndrome. He's like, they've got no services, nothing. So on our way home, he's like, man, could we ever do something in Colorado Springs? And that's what started. It was just like 200 people. We were like, we can't do a show about, telling a story of Down syndrome without including people with Down syndrome in it. So we're like making calls to families we know. And it just kind of grew from there. And now it's developed into a whole community.
Wow. That's so powerful. I
Yeah.
love what you said. It's maybe not overtly Christian, but it's very holy. I'm
Yeah.
sure it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
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 Wow.
The population has like so much to give, and there's so much gold within these people and families that are often set aside. They're financially set back because of a lot of medical conditions and compromises in health issues, but what they have endured and the love that exists is
Phenomenal.
Is
I'm
phenomenal.
sure. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So other than that, you've been touring and writing and
Yeah.
recording and doing
Sure.
your thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
And now 1121 Worship, which we're going to talk about in a few moments when we come back from our break. Man, it's so good to have you both here.
Thank you.
More to come. All right, you guys, this is already off to a great start, even though I forgot the name of the biggest song in Jared's
not gonna let it
catalog. I'm not going to let that go. But anyway, we're going to take a break, and we're going to sit around here and sing Great I Am while you catch this quick break. We'll be right back. What would it feel like to have 52 weeks of access to the right people in Nashville? People who've been making music for decades. People who can answer every question that you have about what pro-level music making is all about. Well, you can get that and more by joining NCS Community. Our community is a group of worldwide dedicated Christian songwriters who want what you want, to glorify God with your gifts and to get your music out there. I hope that you'll consider joining NCS Community today. All right, we're back in the studio with Kelly Wilkerson and Jared Great I Am Anderson. And we've had a great first segment because we've been talking about
Way to
the
go,
history of
Anders.
Teen
Yeah.
Challenge and World Challenge and the global mission that continues to this day, 67 years later. And I know personally because in my younger years, I did lead worship and do music for some Teen Challenge events back
Yes.
in Memphis, Tennessee, where I grew up. But you were sharing with me in the break, Kelly, that you in your own family have suffered with addiction. And
Yes.
why don't you unpack a little bit of that before we get into 1121 Worship?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. When Gary and I first got married, you just think this, because our parents are saved and Christians and just having that foundation of church that it's like, of course, that's the way we're going to raise our family and, not have to struggle with anyone abusing drugs or stuck in addiction. And lo and behold, down the line, it would pop up, and our children have struggled. We have four children, and all of them at different places in life. One was married, and then, suffered a tragedy, and then turned to alcohol, and then in college, of course, pot was introduced, and then it turned to pain meds, and then heroin, and one of our sons, he actually shares Gary's first name. So he was stealing from us because he had access to bank accounts and credit cards, and we had to ask him to leave our home. He was mainlining heroin and ended up in jail, and Christ met him there. I mean, just a glorious story of transformation. So
Wow.
I think, and because my father-in-law had started Teen Challenge, and right now, globally, there's probably 30,000 people that are being ministered to with addiction and life-controlling problems and getting set free. And it was just like our children had a target on their back, and
Sure
the
they did.
enemy
Yeah.
wanted to take them out. And
take you guys out
yes,
too. Take the ministry
because
down.
that was such a painful struggle. And there was at one point that it was like, I am not going to move from this place of giving thanks to the Lord, for he is good and his mercy endures forever. Just almost felt like Jehoshaphat, where he's surrounded on every side, and it's like, where do we go from here? There's nothing. And it was like, this is your proclamation. This is your anthem. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, and
so
his
good.
mercy endures forever. And this son that had been walking in sobriety, and he came home and he was like, you know what? I'm going to go back with this girl that I was living with. And, I was like, don't do that. Don't do that. And he got in his car and he left, and it was kind of a gray day. But I'm telling you, John, just staying in that proclamation to give thanks to God, for he's good and his mercy endures. The weather changed dramatically from just a gray day to, it was gale winds. It started hailing. There was thunder. There was lightning. It was almost as if there was a physical manifestation of the spiritual war that was going on for this young man's life. And I was like, God, I'm going to stay right here. And Gary came out on the deck where I was undercover, and he goes, Elliot called. And he said, the storm is too bad, and he's going to turn around, and he wants us to take him so he can go back to sober living.
Wow.
And I was, God, and he has intervened time and time and time again, So we've just seen miracle after miracle. And yeah, anyone that needs prayer for a loved one, a prodigal, a spouse,
Or themselves.
I will pray with you and
Love
just stand
that.
and believe
Wow.
that God has deliverance for you.
Wow.
That there's
So
freedom
beautiful. And
in
so you
Jesus.
guys have lived out
Yes.
the ministry.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow, that's so powerful. And now you guys have started 1121 Worship as an extension
Yes.
of World Challenge and of
Right.
these experiences. And you have a worship leading songwriting background. Jared, why don't you open up a little bit of what that's about and where these songs are coming from and
Sure.
why? What's the why behind 1121 Worship?
Sure. World Challenge has been, in leading pastors and ministering the gospel for a number of years. And in these conferences, it just made sense to what is the worship expression of our community. And so partnering, I came alongside about almost 3 years ago. We've been relationally connected for years and years in the same town and crossed paths, but got more formal about 3 years ago to begin the expression at these conferences of how are we going to lead worship and what is our song, what is our sound, what is our voice. So began to write, began to pray and rehearse, and I think as in all, songwriting is like elevated crying. Like this is the song or the cry of the heart, and each heart has its own way of breaking, its own shape of falling apart. And all of us have, as Kelly's even describing, like this is the nature of my cry. This is the nature of my longing to be healed in a way I cannot heal myself, right? And so that is the entry point to singing. Like in the scripture, it's like the horse and rider were thrown into the sea, the people crossed on dry land and sang. That the singing was the response to the crossing, right? So what is the wilderness? What is the river that cannot be crossed, right? Like what is that, and how do we sing from that place? So we're just entering into our responses present time, and we're pulling songs that we know and songs that have ministered to us and bringing it back to the conversation. So that's our work, and that's why we're at it.
Oh, why 11:21? What does that come from?
It's Hebrews 11:21, that by faith Jacob prayed for the sons of Joseph, and then he knelt on his staff and worshiped. And so since we are a multi-generational team, that we want to pray for generations and younger generations and then model worship for them. So it's just kind of like that call of, yeah, we are for you. We love you. We want to pray for you. We want to be an example for you. We want to challenge you, nurture you.
I love that.
So,
That's great because we're in a culture that worships youth.
right.
And so to have a multi-generational ministry is really powerful. That's what we are here at Nashville Christian Songwriters. We work with people who are teenagers all the way up to, I had one client who was 80.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
great.
So I mean, we love
That's
the
me, Jared.
multi-generational.
Bring it.
Yeah. And you're not quite 80, but
Yeah, working on it.
working on
I
it.
meant me.
Yeah. I was going to be kind to the lady.
He's
I
on
was
the
not going
younger
to bring
side
up
there.
age.
Yeah, no.
But, I think I probably am the oldest in the room. That's okay. Well, so now, along with really formalizing the way you're expressing worship in the conferences, and you guys have known each other. This isn't like, hey, let's just go out and hire some pro guy he wrote a song called "Great I Am" many years ago to it's going to come up two more times. But anyway, this was relational.
Yes.
This
That's
was
right.
not just, hey, let's go hire a pro. Let's do this. I love
Right.
that.
So, yeah, when World Challenge wanted to start the studio, then I just hired a friend he was meant to be here with us. So
Yeah.
James Guerra, he got sick. He's a phenomenal musician, friend, man of faith, and he had a closer relationship with Jared, and so that kind of reintroduced us. And but just through prayer, we just, God, how do you want to do this? Because we want to add value to our constituents, our donors. We want to have something that will encourage and bolster their faith, their lives, and keeping their hearts tender before the Lord Jesus, to bring honor to the cross of Christ, and what how that transforms our lives and gives us a relationship with
beautiful,
the
yeah.
Father. So
And you're doing these conferences,
Right.
and you do need to have, I would say, your thumbprint, the kind of worship and original songs. I'm just a huge fan of writing for your own ministry and for your situation.
Yeah.
And I've been listening to the 11:21 worship, and my favorite so far is At Your Table. What a beautiful song. Can you quote that at the verse at all? I'm putting you on the spot, but
All the sinners and the saints, all the broken and ashamed, all the ones who fell away come to the table. Yeah.
now if that's not the ministry of World Challenge, I know you
Right.
encourage pastors and
Sure.
all
Right.
that, but with the
It's all of
history of
us.
Teen Challenge
Yeah.
and
Right.
all of the legacy that's there, that one verse captures it all for
Yeah.
me.
Right.
I love that, Jared.
It's fun.
Yeah.
So to have this focus in your life, is this transitioning you out of your own kind of touring and such, or how is it affecting your
Yeah, it's a good
personal
question.
writing and ministry?
I did an EP back in 2019, and I just felt kind of done with the solo worship thing. The the line between ministry and entertainment is it is strange. I have this thought. It's kind of right. You know how we put the two words arts and entertainment together? I think that maybe they're about as related as like eye care and plumbing. Like, we don't put eye care and plumbing together. Why do we put arts and entertainment together? Like, what is that? Who did that? Where did that come from?
Yeah.
And I feel like the way we kind of spin, or the way our culture or economy or whatever, kind of what you have to do, it becomes, I don't know, something about it, for me at least, just became so distracting, and I want to say like dislocating. I'm like a shoulder that's been dislocated. Like, what was I doing, and why am I doing all this other stuff in order to do what I thought I was supposed to be doing, right? So really, I found it to go back to a community, to be very grounded, to be connected, to not be solo. I mean, I don't know. That's been just really helpful. Like, I don't have to do it all. I don't have to be in charge of it all. I can do my portion and the piece of the fabric.
The body of Christ.
Right.
What a concept.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's been my own journey. It's not for everybody, but that's where I found myself as of late.
That's so cool. So you guys are writing together?
Oh, yeah.
And
all three
you're
of us,
leading worship. You're
It's
both
all,
leading,
with
co-leading.
all of us together.
Yeah.
It's great. So you have the one album out now, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we have
And-
another EP coming out. Well, singles start at the end of this month, and then the end of April will be fully released, called Beholding Jesus is our next project.
Awesome. And
Yeah.
then you have revived and reimagined Rise Again.
Yes.
47 years later, Dallas Home and Praise. I mean, that is amazing. How did that come about? I mean, it's intrinsically related to David's ministry back in the
Right.
day.
Yeah.
The first RIAA Gold Certified Christian song
Right.
of the day.
Yes.
So that's amazing.
So, yeah, I think it was just part of this thing where to offer hope to younger generations, and just as we were praying, it's like, God, I would love to, not that I want to do a podcast, but I would love to have those interviews with Dallas and in the community in Lindale where we lived for a while. It was second chapter of Acts, Keith Green, Kelly Willard, Paul Balash, all in like a 2-mile square radius. You know, I mean, it was like, there's so much here. And Harvest was there. I mean, there were so many Christian artists, and they're still standing. You know, they have walked out a life with God that has been faithful. It's been true. It's been a struggle. You know, they've had sorrows. They have endured and persevered. And so I was like, I want to connect with that. I want to have something that we can offer to people coming in to this walk of ministry. That's not easy. You know, it is such a hard road to
right. And
and path
Totally,
to go, you know?
totally.
And so so just trying to figure out like how can we do that? And then it was just like, Jared, we've got to do Rise Again. You know, I mean, Dallas is such a great friend, and I love it when we get texts from him. It's like, I'm praying for your family every day, you know, and so it's like, what better way to honor him and our friendship, you know, just to continue.
That's great.
You
That's
know,
great.
that legacy of songwriting. From
Did you
him.
feel any trepidation redoing such an iconic song, Jared?
I didn't really I wasn't super familiar with it. It was kind of before my time, and I don't know, I heard it, you know, and you're kind of peeling back. It felt, I don't want to say crooning a little bit, but like it felt very like passionate and dramatic. And our approach is a little bit more, has a little bit more drive on it. But it felt fun to take the emotion, and it's such a great, beautifully written song, and it was like, oh yeah, this is like,
Right.
it's almost hard to mess this up. This just lives so well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm excited about it. I've been listening to it, and of course, you sound amazing, and
Thank you.
such a great ministry, a new season for you both.
Yeah.
And congratulations, if that's even appropriate. But
Right.
like,
No.
way to go, well done. How
Oh,
about
thanks.
that? And we're
Thank
so
you,
excited about 1121 Worship and the continuing ministry of David Wilkerson through you and Gary and
Yes, thank
your
you.
staff and everyone who is serving alongside you worldwide.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for being here today. We look forward to more to come.
Yeah, this
Thanks.
is awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, you guys. Well, that's such an exciting thing to think that a song any of us write could be around 47 years later. And when I was being mentored by Bill Gaither, he would always ask, when I would play him a silly little song, he'd say, who's going to care about this in 100 years? And that became a real standard for me, and it continues to be something that I coach you guys with, and to try to help instill in you that you can write a song that could outlive you. So tune in to everything that's going to help elevate you and your songwriting. Our NCS 2025 Songwriting Challenge. Download the guide if you haven't already. Tune into the podcast. Every first Monday, we do a free training. And again, I want to thank Jared Anderson and Kelly Wilkerson for being here today. And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for joining us on today's show. If you got some value, please help us share the love. Leave a like and a share and a good review. Be sure to check out everything that we have to offer you at NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com. We'll see you next time.